What's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, a sad one. It's being reported by who is the best bodybuilder on Instagram, as well as RX Muscle, that Illia Golem has passed away, according to close sources. He was the guy that big, tattooed, like 350 pounds. You guys might remember a couple years ago, he was supposed to fight Craig Goliath. If you guys know, Craig Goliath is the guy, always out angling people in pictures. But Illia was basically just known for being this massive dude. He was like 350 pounds. He was involved with 5% Nutrition for a while, Rich Piana's brand. I know he also had a pretty big bodybuilding clothing company, but apparently he was only 36 years old. I haven't seen any other reports that really go into great detail about what happened or when exactly this was, so I would avoid speculating or trying to assume what did happen to him and what the cause of death was. But 36 years old, pretty young. I mean, I talked to him a few times, like I said, back when he was going to fight Craig Goliath. And back then when I talked to him, I assumed he was like in his 40s, but I guess he was in his early 30s back then, so he's surprisingly young. And I will say that every time I talked to him, he was an extremely nice guy. He was always offering, a bunch of information about whatever was going on at the time. And at one point, he even offered to send me some of the clothes from his clothing company. So every time that I've talked to him, very nice guy. Very unfortunate to hear this happen to him. And I think, again, just kind of another potentially cautionary tale. We don't know exactly what happened. We don't know if it was directly correlated to bodybuilding, but bodybuilders do seem to have a track record of dying at a much younger age than the rest of the population, so could potentially be another one of those cautionary tales. But rest in peace, Illia Golem. Really nice guy. Absolute monster of a physique. So next up in the news, this is a pretty interesting one. So the competitor list for this weekend's UK Pro Show just got posted. And again, just a reminder, this is the final qualifying opportunity for this year's Mr. Olympia in men's open bodybuilding. So after this, no more names will be added to that Olympia qualified competitor list. This is the last one. So going through this list very quickly, you've got Ahmad Al-Rafael. Morgan Asti is back at this one. Lewis Breed is coming back at this one. We saw him in Texas at the Texas Pro. You've got Ali Edward, Enrico Hoffman, who just competed in this past weekend's Italy Pro. Lorenzo Lue, who also competed and placed at this past weekend's Italy Pro. Josh Malley, Jeekson Mao. And I think probably the most surprising of this entire lineup is Patrick Moore is officially back for this one, traveling all the way to the UK to try to get that last-minute Olympia qualification. We'll talk about him in a second. He posted a recent posing video a few days ago I'll show on here. You've got Mo Insauer, Andrea Presti, back from his runner-up position from the Italy Pro. In my opinion, Andrea probably the favorite here. I thought he had a really good look in Italy. I thought his conditioning was really on point. Probably the favorite to win this. Bruno Santos, Vilius Sosnovskis, Mariusz Tomzik, and William Martins is in this one. He's probably another favorite here. I can't remember the last time we saw him compete, but I really like his physique as well. So really a bit of an eclectic group of guys here. I'm probably most excited to see Patrick Moore come back, because it's been a while since we've seen him compete. So let's talk about Patrick for a second. If you look at his most recent update, this was 5 days ago, so 1 week out from this weekend's UK Pro. You're really only seeing his upper body here, so it's really hard to tell. Typically he was criticized for his legs. You can't see his legs in really any of the recent updates that I'm looking at. When Patrick nabbed that top 10 placing, I believe it was the 2019 Mr. Olympia. It was the year that Brandon Curry won. I think the thing that a lot of people really liked about Patrick's physique at that Olympia showing was his aesthetics and his conditioning. Really tight conditioning package from him at that Olympia, and obviously very aesthetic for an open bodybuilder. But in the shows that followed that Patrick would do in the years to come, I think people felt that he never really matched that same 2019 conditioning, and people also felt that without that conditioning, he he was kind of getting outsized in some of these lineups. And so in this update, while I feel Patrick looks good, I don't really think he looks, significantly bigger in any areas in the upper body. His conditioning looks okay here, but again, we can't see his lower body at all, so it's hard to tell. And I think this will be a challenging one for Patrick. You've got guys like Lewis Breed. You guys saw Lewis in Texas. He came into that Texas Pro, just diced. Really good conditioning. Andrea Presti, we mentioned. We just saw him in Italy next to Hunter Labrada. Runner-up position there. He was absolutely shredded at that show. So there's going to be guys, William Martins is another guy that's known for bringing conditioning, but there's going to be guys at this UK show that are really known for just conditioning, and that's something that Patrick has struggled with. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does here, but I'm glad to see that he's back, and I'm curious to see how he's going to fare in this lineup. And again, we haven't seen Patrick recently, so it's kind of hard to say. So when I'm looking at this lineup, I'm kind of drawn the most to Lewis Breed and Andrea Presti as the favorites here. We've seen them recently. They both looked really good. I also think the third and fourth place guys from Italy, Bruno Santos was third, Lorenzo Lue was fourth. I think those guys looked really good in Italy. They'll probably do pretty well here. But overall, this will be an interesting show to watch because no one in this lineup is currently qualified for the Olympia, so no matter who wins this show, there will be one last new name added to that Olympia qualified competitor list, and we'll find out this weekend who that's going to be. And it also looks like they have this show listed as a Sunday show. It's listed for the 15th for the Open show, so just be prepared for that. If you guys live in the States, this one looks like it's going to be another one that falls on a Sunday instead of a Saturday. Now, next up in the news, we've got an under 5 weeks out physique update from Martin Fitzwater. Martin, who had a very impressive season this year. I think I said in the last video I would consider him maybe one of the most improved bodybuilders from this season compared to last season, winning obviously the Detroit Pro where he beat Good Vito, and then that close runner-up position to Nick Walker at the New York Pro. I think he really stirred up a lot of conversation for how well he's potentially going to do at the Olympia this year. I think he's going to be a disruptor. I don't necessarily think that he's going to be like in the conversation for top 3. I mean, I don't think that's impossible, but I think he's going to be solidly within that top 10, maybe in the 6, 7, 8 range. So I think he's really going to be in there, not quite in a Hottie, Derek, Samson level, but the fact that he was pushing Nick Walker at that New York Pro, I think was significant. I think the package that he brought to Detroit where he beat Good Vito for his first professional win as an open bodybuilder was very impressive. And I think he's very complete. He's a very complete bodybuilder. He's got very full, round 3D muscle bellies. The conditioning that we saw from him this season was pretty top-notch. And I think if he brings a package similar to those that we saw in New York and Detroit, or better, I think he's going to do really well at the Olympia. I think he's going to catch a lot of people by surprise. I am really curious about this year's Olympia, especially with Brandon Curry. Like, where do you guys think he's going to place? 'Cause I think a lot of people right now are talking about Samson, Hottie, and Derek. I think most people have them their top 3, right? You guys can let me know in the comments below if you have someone different. But I think a lot of people have their top 3 as Samson, Hottie, Derek. And then right behind that top 3, I think a lot of people are talking about Nick, Andrew Jacked, a lot of people like Raphael. Hunter is another one. I think Bonac looked really good this season too. I think he's another guy that could find himself somewhere in that range. But it'll be an interesting Olympia to see how those placings shake out, especially like 4 through 10. I think that's going to be interesting and definitely going to be different than last year. And speaking of Samson Dauda, we got a really solid physique update from him in the last day. This time, not a posing video, not specifically focused on the back, but a side tricep this time from Samson Dauda. And look, Samson looks really impressive. A lot of the physique updates that we've seen from Samson lately have been really what we want to see. I mean, in those updates that we got of him from the back, really deep separated hamstrings, striations in the glutes. And when you look at him in this side tricep, and again, we're under 5 weeks out now, you see a lot of detail in his physique. A lot of vascularity in his arms. His midsection looks really good. You can see his abs look really deep, really separated. You can even see in the pec that's furthest from the camera in this pose. You can even see striations in that far pec, even though he's not necessarily flexing that pec. A lot of separation in the legs, obviously crazy size to his legs. But like I said, I mean, everyone keeps saying we want to see conditioning from Samson. And honestly, the updates that he's been posting, all of them, he looks really conditioned. He looks on track. And there's really nothing to say about him that is negative based on any of the updates that we've seen. And obviously, ideal lighting, gym pictures, and things like that, it's different than being on stage. But, all the indicators of Samson seem to be that he's going to be in shape. And again, I think there's levels to conditioning. Like Hadi Chupin level of conditioning is different than Samson being in really good shape. Hadi is just kind of in a league of his own when it comes to that type of conditioning. But if Samson can come close to that, it's going to be an interesting top 3. I don't think Samson necessarily needs to match or out-condition Hadi, so he doesn't need to have the same conditioning or better, because I think Samson has a better structure than Hadi. He's got more muscle than Hadi. He's more aesthetic than Hadi. So if Samson were able to just bring conditioning close enough to Hadi, I think that would be enough to beat him, and then you'd have that conversation of Derek versus Samson. I think Samson, if he gets it together, he likely will win the Olympia one day. Could that day come sooner than we think, and could it be this year? I mean, potentially it could be. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Where do you think Samson will place at this year's Mr. Olympia? Now, next up in the news, we got a physique update from Ramon Dino, who apparently is now in the United States, and it looks like he's going to be finishing out the rest of his prep here in the U.S. So this recent update, this video, and these pictures are all from under 5 weeks out, and he is here. He has arrived, and like I said, it looks like he's going to be finishing things out here in the States. He looks good. I mean, there's nothing really that jumps out to me about Ramon that looks super different from his last prep, for example. I mean, for the Arnold Classic Ohio, nothing about these updates that we're seeing for the Olympia looks super different to me. But he looked good in those Arnold updates too. It's just that he ended up losing to Wesley Vissers at that show. So it's hard to say with Ramon. I'm really torn on what I think is going to happen in that classic physique division at the Olympia. On one hand, I want to go and say, Wesley beating Ramon at the Arnold puts him next in line, and I want to just assume that it's going to be Chris and Wesley in the top 2. And we don't know that for sure. I mean, Ramon could come back better than ever at this Olympia. I just don't know based on these updates if we're seeing that. I think Wesley will likely be in the top 3, but I'm just curious about the rematch between Ramon and Wesley, because I think Ramon definitely needs to make up some ground, because he definitely lost some ground to Wesley at that Arnold. Like I said, it wasn't just that Ramon was off, it was that Wesley improved a lot. So I think not only does Ramon need to come into this Olympia significantly better than he was at the Arnold to be a strong rival to not only Chris, but to Wesley as well, but I think Ramon needs to improve from the Arnold, not just conditioning, because Wesley and Chris are both much bigger guys. So Wesley has shown that he's really competitive with his conditioning. He's really competitive with his posing as well, but he's really competitive with his size. So he's really kind of that triple threat, the same as Chris. And Ramon, he's great, but he's not the biggest guy. And at the Arnold, he didn't show the best conditioning, so he's got to really improve those 2 aspects. And if Chris Bumstead is the standard, a big, tall, classic guy, really commanding stage presence, bigger than almost anybody in that lineup, if that's the standard in classic physique with good conditioning, Wesley seems to be the guy that's closest to meeting that standard. He's big, he's tall, he's shown crazy conditioning consistently now at back-to-back Arnold Classics, and his posing, I think, is very, very good. So I think if it's going to be Chris and Ramon again in those top 2 spots, Ramon's going to have to really step it up to make that a reality, because Wesley is really gunning for one of those spots, I feel. Now, the final story that I've got for you guys today, we got another update from Keone Pearson, very similar to the last one that we got from him, this time under 5 weeks out. And I think this is probably one of the bigger debates in bodybuilding right now is with the 212 Olympia. Will Keone be able to defend his title and win another one? Or will Sean Clarita come back and regain his title? Now, we've seen quite a bit of updates from Keone, and honestly, not a whole lot from Sean Clarita, so it's kind of hard to say how Sean is looking. I know that I think is intentionally not posting these updates. I think he posted an update months ago where he said this will be the last one till the Olympia. I'm still going to stand by, I think that these updates that we're seeing from Keone, this is the best Keone's ever looked. Even better than last year. And I'm still going to stand on, I think Keone will win another title. And I still think structurally, Keone has one of the best physiques in terms of genetics in the IFBB, period. And I think that Keone has really found his stride with his coach Patrick Tour. It really seems like they've figured out the recipe. It seems like they've got the formula down. And I think Keone will win the Olympia again this year. But let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with that. I'm sure a lot of people disagree. Let me know down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Click that bell notification icon so you don't miss any uploads. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.